Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with some of the colleagues today.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we want to talk about why video games are important to RPGs. So, why?
Well, there's the entire RPG genre of video game playing. And I think that gets a lot of people interested in the fantasy aspect if they are more like video gamers instead of, tabletop gamers.
Oh.
So they may venture off
over
to the tabletop at some point.
Over the years, the kind of, direct translation from, an RPG video game to a tabletop thing, there's, tons of Final Fantasy, we're going to go way back. You can talk about Dragon Warrior. There's been, the newer stuff of Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, Skyrim, Oblivion. Are there any that I'm missing?
Wow.
World of Warcraft.
How can you not say that one? That's
I think that's popular enough. We should mention it.
Yeah,
I
guys,
never did WoW.
Guys, when I started gaming at the table, I didn't have any of those games, dude. You had Atari and ColecoVision, and you freaking. I'm trying to think of. I can't even think of the name of the games that would have been like. Even close, and they're not.
Back then, it was just the text-based. The text-based RPGs.
Like, do you go down, left, right? Do you search?
Yeah.
I remember playing that on an old computer.
Guys, when I was a kid, you really didn't have that either.
Oh.
No one was alive back then.
I know. Oh my god. I want to kill you both. But
he's only a couple years older than us, so.
No, but when I first it was exposed to RPGs, I was in kindergarten and personal computers were virtually unheard of.
Right.
So that wasn't even there. Atari was just coming on the scene and being big, and even still like I'm trying to think of the game where you had the guy that had to jump over the Pitfall.
Right.
Like Pitfall was the closest thing you actually had. Eventually, they did actually come up with a Dungeons and Dragons game, which was nothing like Dungeons and Dragons at all.
Well, my first exposure was on the Nintendo. It was shortly after I had it, way back in the '80s, and it was Dragon Warrior. And it was the one where like you had to select off of the menu if you wanted to open a door or use stairs. None of this automatic, you go up to it and it just transitions. No, you have to do it. If you walk into a wall, it goes because you're still trying to walk.
Think about it. Like as tabletop, you have a tabletop gaming that begins evolving. Then you have the technology that begins evolving, and slowly, like really, the stuff that's tabletop gaming gets introduced into the technology, and it becomes more and more popular and more accessible and easier for them to program. The graphics get better and better, which it's going to have a good and bad effect. One is I think kids start moving away from the tabletop and to video game, right? Because that's like the thing, and it's what they grew up with. But so it creates this unique opportunity though for the thing that kind of like tabletop helped create to now feed back into tabletop. Right. So it's like this loop now. For players who, even though a lot of the games are very sandbox-ish and kind of open, you still never get the full wide variety of choices that you get with an RPG.
Well, the lack of dialogue. You have infinite options compared to 4 or 5.
If you've got someone at the table and a DM behind the screen, you can ask a question that isn't programmed in as an option, and that opens things up to so many more options than anything that could be possibly programmed in.
Now, to the role playing aspect, and there's people that play MMOs and actually role play. So with the other players, so the dialogue is unlimited.
They can do that with the other players.
But with the actual interface of the game, it's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm speaking about.
I think they are starting to come out with games that are more like, and it's being more introduced as more like moderated based. So there is actually more like interaction, but it's still nowhere near what we get at the table. I could be wrong on that too, you guys. I hardly even play any video games.
Well, the new one that's coming out from D&D, it's kind of geared towards a dungeon master able to run scenarios that you're basically online and you're using the game as an assistant to have the monsters fight the people, and all the basically it's
Maybe
less,
because I thought I had read something along those lines, so that's kind of like it's moving towards that direction.
so the DM can have anybody say whatever he wants but he's again that moderation. He's the moderator of their experience within the game system.
So like now, like my son has recently come into gaming, right? But first he started with video games, and that's like kind of like the thing, like that like captures their imagination, and then like kids nowadays, that's where they're gonna draw their inspiration for their characters from, more than likely. Like for us growing up, especially for me, it was more about books and comic books. Mm-hmm. Now as kids, don't engage in those forms of media as much. The books will still kind of be there, but I really feel like comic books have faded. So now instead they're going to draw from comic book movies. They're going to draw from video games. So it does change, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Like people online especially get really, really pissy about the MMO terms. You should embrace them, because that's what this new generation is going to know and understand, and it's going to help them identify something that they already enjoy and maybe they're passionate with this hobby.
And it's just describing the mechanical bent. I mean, the game is described through these rules, and a striker, like the ranger is a striker. He does a lot of damage, and he's mobile and all this kind of stuff.
Which, and oddly enough, it's funny too, because with 4th edition, they kind of talked about this. It's like, they talked about, role-playing games influence, bless you, video games, so we're just going to allow that to bleed back into our role-playing games.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, guys.
So why not? I mean, like, the archetypes have always been there. Like, in 1st edition Dungeons & Dragons, like, who's going to play the cleric?
The cleric, the
healer. Who's gonna be the wizard controller? Who's gonna be the fighter? Tank. So like
the blaster, the wizard that does not control but just blows everything up in front of him. So
well, it's the same thing as area effect stuff, but but the concepts have always been in the game. We just use different terminology. And for these tightwads to get their panties in a bunch, oh my God, MMO terms. What are you doing in my game? Oh, hello, your game is going to go away if we don't get new people in it. We need to bring people into the hobby, into the game. And if these are the terms that they're comfortable with, so what? It's just a word.
It's not a big deal. Just accept it and move on. Let them play. Let them have.
Because what a fighter really doesn't describe what kind of character you play in combat at all. Fighter, okay.
I fight swing like all the characters. It's D&D. Everybody fights stuff.
Everybody can fight, and everybody can swing something at an object or a goblin or whatever. So what kind of
fighter, or a goblin?
What kind of fighter? Or a goblin. Swing a goblin at something. Yeah. So what kind of fighter are you? Well, fighter doesn't describe it. It's your class. All the other things like striker, tank, all this, leadership support, all those kind of things. Those describe more what you do rather than what class you are. So I think it's more informative, personally. So,
but I can't argue with that.
And we got that, and that's the positive influence, I think, on video games on the tabletop.
So it loops back, and it gives us fodder for finding, new players. I mean, if someone likes WoW, there's a possibility they find a Fistful of Dice or a DFC video or a Nerdarchy video or Acquisition Inc. gameplay, and they go, oh wow, this kind of makes me think of that thing I like. I would like to try this. So it is a good thing. Let them call the roles whatever they want to call them, but come into the hobby, come play with us, and as time goes on, maybe they'll come around to your point of view, or maybe not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that this hobby we love continues on and grows, and we get the next generation in. Ted's son is 7. And he likes playing Skylanders, right?
Yep.
So, like, that's his influence. And in a couple years, he'll be playing other video games. This is going to be his basis for moving into tabletop RPGs if he decides to go that route. Like, so, instead of worrying about, if someone's getting, MMO into your tabletop RPG, or, tabletop RPG into your MMO.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, you got MMO in my RPG. You got RPG in my MMO.
Why don't we just embrace it and go, oh, great, people are playing tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, makes a good game. We're playing.
Indeed.
So, take us out, Ted.
So, you know, what do you guys think? Go ahead, share your stories down below of what you think, you know, spawned your interest in video games, RPGs. While you're making that comments, like, subscribe, even share.
And hey, head over to nerdarchy.com where you can find Nerdarchy the store and get cool Nerdarchy swag.
Like shirts, hats.
Yeah, you can check out funny memes over on our Facebook page.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.